Hey, how's it going? Hopefully things are going great where you are. Not too bad here. I don't have time for much today, but I thought I'd do this picture of a daisy that I was looking at. It's so pretty. So I've got a picture that I found of a daisy, and I'm looking at that. I'm using it as reference, and I'm starting with a piece of 140-pound watercolor paper, because if you've watched before, you know that's what I always use. Got my trusty brushes here, and I'm starting with dry paper and wet paint. You always want to get your paintbrush full of your colors. That's important. So I did some yellow, and this picture I'm looking at of a daisy looks like just inside the middle there's a ring of orange. So while this is still a wet spot, I'm going to add some orange and let it blend. And then it looks like in the middle of it there's a little green. So I'm going to rinse off my brush, fill it up with green, and just tap a little to the middle. Now it's interesting, I'm going to make a lot of green now because this picture I'm looking at, the daisy is white and a lot of the background is green. So this is always a little bit of a challenge. So I'm going to make a lot of green. I'm working with this color. This is an olive green, a sap green, some nice spring greens, a little blue mixed in. But I've got plenty to go around in the background. See how it's puddling in over there? Okay, I've got this brush with cat hair on it. Cats. And I'm going to just work on negative space. I'm going to try to pull out some petal shapes, and I'm going to kind of join it with this picture I did the other day, because that could be cool. You're working with negative spaces, it's kind of tricky, because it's not how we're used to thinking. At least not for me. So here I am working on the outside, looking at the petals and the petal shapes, but then instead of bringing the color back into the petal, I'm bringing it around. And this will at least tame the watercolor voice in my head for today. At least I did some watercolor, even if it's nothing big. I don't know about you guys, but if I don't do art for too long, I start to feel squirmy. Gotta scratch that itch, so to speak. So I'm also I'm looking at my picture, but not at the same time. I like to look at flowers. I like to look at nature, watch birds, sit outside. So I like to look at pictures, but at the same time, I like to have some of it come from my own experience. Things that I've seen. I'm dabbing color with the top of my brush sometimes, and then I'm also going on the side for some other parts. This is one of the reasons I don't like to tape down my paper, because I like to work all over. I like to work on my paintings from different directions. I like to work all over the page all the time. So this is how I like to work. So I've gotten most of the petals in now. Awesome. Cool. I like it. Hello, little pink flower. Kind of incorporate it. Why not? These flowers could be growing together, not like this, but nonetheless, that's kind of cool. And you can go back in some places, given a hint of shadows here and there. I like to say that my light source is coming from somewhere up here. Usually when I paint, that's what I do. So unless I am specifically thinking of a different light source, my go-to is to put the shadows with the light coming from right there. And I'm just going back over it again and I'm making some of the shadows kind of round, kind of petal shape, because maybe there are some petal behind there, you know. Maybe not, I don't know. So this is kind of a lost and found quality, which I always like. I like things going out into the distance, and where do they end? I don't know. It's fun to imagine. Cool. So that's nice. I've got some pretty cool looking gray blue here. I'm going to add some water to it. Probably a decent amount, because I'm going to use this as some flower petal shadow, and I want it to be pretty transparent. Because I want the petals to stay looking white. So if I assume my light source is where it is, there's going to be shadow around this part of the middle. And then petal might be bent different places, and I can look at my picture for reference too if I need to. And there's sometimes some lines, textures in the middle, and boy, this is fun to use for this. Oh, look at that. That's cool. I really like adding lines with this bad boy. This is a great paintbrush for that because it's plastic, so I'm not getting any paintbrush color. I'm not getting any paintbrush color onto my picture when I use that. So I'm going to say that the petals are kind of bending, you know, so it would be shadow here, maybe there, maybe here. Maybe this one has a bend right there. Add some little lines in this one. So the petals all have a little petal texture, right? Petals have texture. So we're going to give a hint of that everywhere. That's pretty. I've got this million-year-old paintbrush, or paper towel, that's great for dabbing off water, and I always like to reshape my brushes. At this point, I've got these colors involved. This green, this one, and then I've got my yellows from the center. I want something dark, not too dark, so I'm going to use this that I used for something else. I think I used this particular spot as a dark before. Doesn't have to be too dark. And I also wanted to have a kind of a feel of what I used before, so I'm going to grab some of this in there. So it feels like the picture is related and it's talking to it. It's talking throughout it to itself, so to speak. It doesn't look like anything is just, you know, off by itself. I like the colors to feel like they're relating throughout. So I'm going to put a hint of darkness between some of these. Put that down. Scrape at it with this. So between some of these petals, there's some darkness, and that's what I'm That's what I'm trying to capture here. I like how this is still wet right here. Flower petal centers always have lots of little teeny hairs in there. The bees like to sit on. I suppose. I don't know. This is the sort of thoughts I should keep to myself. Okay, yes. Maybe gonna get my littlest brush that I love. And I'm gonna add a little more orange because I want it to kind of go along this center line that we made before. I'm also going to use it to accentuate some of these shapes between the petals too. And I can use a little in the middle where there was a green spot in my picture. So giving this flower some dimension by doing a few small things. I like little punches of color ever since my high school art teacher, Mr. Uratani, said you have to have dark spaces throughout your pictures to keep the eye moving. It's been stuck in my head, so I always make dark spaces for the eye to hop around. Thank you, Mr. Uratani. All right. That's looking pretty cool. Well, hopefully you got something out of this little painting today, and I might add, is that gonna ruin it? Did that ruin it? I don't know. I don't think so. Just wanted to add a little more right here. Like make an indication of another petal. Blend these a little bit. That's kind of cool. So there's a white daisy for you. Fun. And it's blending in with the little pink flower from yesterday, right? Just picture a small child handed you two different flowers. You put them on the ground, and there they lay next to each other. So that's how you can make it make sense. Have a great day.